Hello and welcome back to my channel. If this is your first time here, my name is Shireen and today I'm going to be doing part 3 of the eyeshadow technique series. The look that I'm going to be doing today basically just involves having the darkest shades kind of along the crease but not on the lid. It creates like a sultry effect, sort of like a cat eye type situation, but since there'll be a lighter shade on your lid, it still keeps your eyes bright and open, which is something that I love. Of course, you can incorporate glitter or shimmer into this look if you want, again on the lid where the brighter shades are. I'm going to be doing an all matte version today though because that's how I prefer to do it. And I'm going to be using the Tarteist Pro palette. This is a palette that I've had for 3 or 4 years at this point, and I think that it is a great beginner palette if you're someone who thinks that they'll use warm toned as well as cool tone shades and a lot of mattes. So here's what I mean. All of these shades here, these 16 shades are all mattes, and then you get 4 shimmers. The way that this palette is set up is super helpful for beginners as well because each row can create its own look. The colors are kind of curated to work well together. So if you don't really know like sort of where to start or how to get inspiration, this palette will give you a great launching point, which is amazing. I'm going to start out by priming my eyelid with some concealer. I really want something that has a lot of pigmentation to it because a lighter matte is going to be going all over the lid, and I need something to guarantee that that lighter shade is going to be the prevalent color and none of my like redness and veins or whatever are going to be shining through that. So I'm going to take Tarte Shape Tape in the shade Light Medium Honey, which is definitely lighter than my skin tone. This would be a brightening shade for me. And I'm just going to put that all over my lids. Oh, something else about this palette, it has a great mirror that you can use for travel, and it's very sturdy. Now that I have a couple of layers of that on, I'm going to take a fluffy blending brush and the shade Classic, and I'm going to put that all over my lid, in the crease and on the lid itself to set everything. I'm choosing to do my eyes before my face makeup because I am going to be using a black later on, and I just want to make sure that if there is any fallout, not that this palette has a spectacular amount of fallout, but it might have some, that it doesn't fall on my base. It just falls on clean skin that I can wipe. So now that I put Classic all over the lid with Morphe R37, I'm going to take a little bit more of a precise brush. This is the Morphe M433, and this one is wider along one side than it is along the other, which I think is great for shaping out the crease because it's not so round that it's going to really extend your crease up towards your brow. It's just going to keep it contained in the way that you would want with a look like this. And I'm going to dip that first into Chic, which is this shade right here, tapping off excess. I'm going to put that here, right along the crease. And I am going to bring it into the inner corner a bit, but we want to make sure that there isn't really anything on the lid. Now that we have our first transition shade down and we see some pigmentation from it, I'm going to deepen up that crease using the shade Innocent and then maybe some of Whimsy. So these two guys here, definitely more warm tone. So warm tones are my favorite, and you can see that I'm almost hitting pan on those. So they are well loved for me in this palette. And then actually, in order to go into Whimsy, I'm going to pick out a brush that's a little finer on the tip so that I can control my motions even more. My trusty M506. Again, a little bit more of a detailed blending brush into Whimsy, which is definitely a more pigmented shade. And that is just going to run along the same spots. So as you can see, I'm maintaining the shape of the crease. I'm not getting any color onto the lid itself, and what you want at this stage is to have lightness right under where your brow bone is, so your base shade peeking through, and then have this gradual transition into like these deeper, warmer, or maybe cooler tone but deeper shades. So if that's roughly what it looks like for you at this stage, then you're on track. So now, before going into my black, I'm going to do my winged eyeliner because that's going to serve as a guiding point for me. I'm going to be using the Inglot gel liner in 77, which is the black shade. You can use whatever kind of eyeliner you're comfortable with. And with my gel liner, I'm going to take the M251, which is just like, it's a detail brush, to do this with. And I'm not going to talk through it because I don't want to mess it up, because then I'll have to start all over. Cool. Okay, so there's one. It has about the right shape. I'm fairly happy with it. I might clean it up a little bit. I did get some smudged right here, which is completely fine because I don't have any kind of base down there. I can just wipe it off. So now that there's a gel down, I'm going to go in with the black. And the reason why I wanted the eyeliner down as kind of like a guiding tool was because I'm going to put the darkest shade very precisely along the crease and connecting it to that liner. So when I have that liner, I know kind of where to draw it to and how to place it. Especially with a darker shade like a black, you do want to be pretty careful because there isn't a lot of room for mercy or forgiveness. Like once it's down, and you can't really blend it out without creating a muddiness and changing the colors that you're blending it into pretty fundamentally. So we're going to be careful. I am going to take this pencil brush. This is the Morphe M431, and I'm going to dip it into the shade Punk, which is just the black shade in this palette. And I'm going to very carefully just place that along the crease, connecting to my wing. Now that I have that down, I'm going to take the M506, which is the blending brush that I use with Whimsy, the darker transition shade, and blend out the edges. Go back, refine the shape a bit. And again, blend it out. Now that I look at the shape of my wing, I'm thinking that I didn't draw it out far enough given my crease shape, so I'm going to go back in with that gel liner and extend the wing a bit. I'm of course going to have to do that on the other side as well so that they're not completely unsymmetrical. Okay, that's definitely better. And then this is now going to extend comfortably into the wing. Again, blending it out. This time I'm going to add a touch of Whimsy to the brush to blend out the edges. Step back, evaluate your work, see what you want to be a little different. So what I'm noticing when I look at this up close is that I have some eyeshadow skipping right here. So I'm going to go in with this guy and put my lighter transition shades right into that area so that I can get into all the folds of my skin and get rid of that skipping. And that basically did it. I'm going to blend out the black a little bit more right around here, and then I'm going to move on to the other eye. But what you can see now is that we have this distinct crease shape. We do have that dramatic sultry kind of vibe going on, that elongated eye because the cat eye has to be relatively long, at least past your crease, so that you can connect everything in the right ways, but you still have that brightness and that openness on the lid. So same thing, other eye. Good enough for me. So now I'm just going to take a makeup wipe and clean off all the mess that we have here, anywhere that the eyeshadow might have extended beyond where I want it to be, and then I'll move on to my face. While it might be tempting to start out here and work your way out, you don't want to do that because then you're going to drag out all of the darker shades into a clean line all along the contours of your eye. Actually, you should start out here and work your way in, and that way you're not dragging any darkness in with you. And of course, constantly keep moving to a clean part of the cloth to avoid the same issue. Now I'm going to prime my face. I'm going to be using two primers. I'm going to use the NARS Pore and Shine Pore Control Primer in the areas where I tend to get oily, which is forehead, nose, and then two spots on my cheeks. And then everywhere else, I'm going to use the Milk Makeup Hydro Grip Primer. I'm still testing this out. It's very like cute, and it's like this pretty sea green color and has a very gel-like consistency. I haven't really noticed a difference in terms of the longevity of my makeup. The concept behind this though is that it is a hydrating, tacky base that is going to keep your makeup on for longer by holding on to it. With my NARS Luminous Weightless Foundation in the shade Santa Fe. Something you may have noticed is that because my skin tone isn't completely even, so I'm tanner in the parts that the sun hits more directly, such as my forehead and on my nose, this foundation is a shade match for me on some parts of my skin, such as right here where I'm the lightest, and isn't on others, such as my forehead. I think when it comes to foundation, it's always better to go, well, it's always better to go for your shade, but it's always better to go for the shade that's a little lighter than your actual shade than a little darker than your actual shade, because you can bronze up a lot more easily than you can lighten something. I do have a preference for bronzer over brightening powders as well, so that's part of it, but I do think that bronzer is a lot easier to use and probably, or is rather more likely to be a step in your makeup routine than a brightening powder is. So that's just my take on things. And of course, depending on whether you fake tan or just like what your skin tone situation is like, you might want to match to your face, or you might want to match to your shoulder or to your arm, or probably not to your neck, because your neck is probably going to be lighter than the rest of your body, again because it's not getting as much sunlight as the higher points of your face. But really kind of have to have a think about what part of your body you want to be shade matching to. So anyway, that is my foundation, and then I'm going to do another Shape Tape, this time in the shade Medium Honey, under my eyes. I don't really do the brightening concealer thing. I don't think that it looks very good on me. Another trick that I have is to spot conceal spots that aren't that prominent but that still are peeking through my foundation a little bit. I just take the excess product on my beauty blender after I'm done blending out my concealer, and I tap it over those spots to get a little bit of coverage while still avoiding like layering on product exactly on those areas. So now setting powder. Laura Mercier Translucent Loose Setting Powder, and I'm mainly just going to set the areas with the concealer and this brush. Not baking. I really do try to tap off the excess of my brush because I do have dry skin. Baking just accentuates the creases on my skin and the dryness. Okay, now that we're done with our setting powder, we're done with our base. I'm going to do my lower lash line and then move on to bronzer, blush, highlight, all that stuff. So for my lower lash line, I'm going to start out with the shade Chic, which was our lightest transition shade. And I'm going to start with this brush to get a smokier lower lash line. Okay, very good enough of that. And now I'm going to go in with a little bit of a finer brush. So maybe, oh, the smudge brush will do well. So this is the Morphe M213, very, very precise. Okay, and then I'm going to take that into Whimsy. And place it right along the lower lash line. Smoky, but controlled. Okay, and then I'm going to blend out the edges of that with the M506 and no excess product. And I think that's it. I'm going to keep the lower lash line pretty simple for this look. I really did try to not use too many eyeshadow shades, so I ended up being classic, chic, a mix of innocent and whimsy, and then punk. So 4 to 5 shades, which I think is not too bad to get kind of like a more dramatic, but still I think wearable kind of eyeshadow look. And then I'll do the brow bone highlight and the inner corner highlight when I do my actual highlight, because I'm not going to use any of the shades from this palette. So now let's move on to bronzer. I'm going to use Hoola Benefit in the regular shade. I know that they just came out with a bunch of new ones. This kind of contour shaped brush, I use this shade as a contour and as a bronzer because I think that since I do have a warmer kind of undertone, I can use something that is a little bit on the warmer side to contour as well. I'm angling myself this way, by the way, because I have natural light coming in from that direction. So I'm really trying to take advantage of it. I think it's always best to do your makeup in natural light, or to be able to get input from natural light, because that is kind of the truest form of lighting. And you don't want like to feel like your foundation matches and like everything looks right and whatever in indoor lighting, and then go outside and you're like super orange, or your, I don't know, your bronzer's way more dramatic than you wanted it to be, or everything's messier. Like that's the kind of thing that you might want to avoid. Okay, now that I have a kind of quick but not overly precise contour down, I'm going to move on to blush. This is a Tarte blush in the shade Tarte, and I'm going to take my Morphe M350 and dip it in. I feel like Tarte blushes are on the less pigmented side, so I'm going to go in a little bit more heavy-handed, and I picked this one because it is a natural but more cool toned blush. I can't say. Which I think works with a look like this, where I used primarily more natural colors. I like to blend my blush into my contour shade, contour bronzer, but I don't like to extend it out into like a stripe, because I think that looks great facing you, but kind of weird and like forced from the side. And I try to do makeup so that it looks good from all angles. Okay, so I think that's good for blush. We got some natural blush going on without being overly dramatic. So now I'm going to do, I think I'm going to do a quick nose contour. I pretty much only like to use this brush. This is a BH Cosmetics brush, and it's fairly densely bristled. I think this was intended to be a crease brush, but I really think that it's too big to go in my eyeball. But I think that it is great for nose contour because it's exactly the right size, and it is dense enough so that I'll actually get some color deposit. I've tried a lot of other brushes for nose contour, and I hate all of them except for this one. So anyway, I'm gonna dip that into the Benefit Hoola as well, and I'm just gonna brush some pigment along the sides of my nose, like so, and connect it up to make it look a little bit more natural. You really shouldn't I think be afraid to pinch in the nose when you're doing nose contour. Like worst case scenario, the contour kind of like bridges together and it looks like you've been in the sun, which is completely fine. I think something that people often do is they're scared to lose that strip of light along the bridge of their nose, and so they do their nose contour too wide, and then it looks kind of fake and also makes their nose look bigger. So at that point, just don't bother. Like, I think a nose contour is one of the least necessary steps, but it is a pretty cool technique if you really have a handle on it. I'm definitely not the best at nose contour, so I'm not super overly qualified to teach it, but this is just what I like to do. So yeah, just brushing along the sides of the nose. I'm going to go over this with my beauty blender later to soften it up. And something I think people often forget is their nostrils when they do a nose contour. So they'll have these like two dark stripes along their nose and then completely bare white nostrils, and it looks very, very unnatural. So something to avoid, in my opinion. Okay, that's good enough for now. I'm going to soften it out again later at the setting spray step. And then I'm going to take this guy, which is Jouer Citrine, and I've used it many, many times. And I'm going to use that to highlight everywhere with my Morphe and 510. Okay, now I'm going to take my Pixie Glow Mist, which is argan oil and some other stuff, and I'm going to spray it on my beauty blender and use that to soften out all the powders that I've added to my face so far. So that makes the highlight a lot softer, and it also makes the nose contour a lot softer, because I do ultimately prefer my makeup to not look overly chiseled and a little bit more natural, again, a little bit more wearable for in person as opposed to just in photos. And I, as I've said so many times, do not like a blinding highlight. This is the Kevyn Aucoin, the Precision Brow Pencil, which is always out of stock. Terrible. This is a really good shade match for me. It is a dark brunette. And I'm just gonna add in some hairs to the front of my brows. And then I'm going to brush out my brow here because I feel like I've gotten some product in it. And then shape it a little bit. I do tend to have fairly angular brows, and I think that gives my face a harsher look, so I try to soften them a little bit without fundamentally changing their shape with a brow pencil. So there's that. Same thing, other side. Then I'm going to go in with my brow gel, Benefit. Everything is wiped off of it. It's a little Benefit brow gel in the darker shade, the darkest shade, I think. Okay, now mascara. Benefit Roller Lash in the mini size, as always. Only use minis because I feel like the regular ones dry out just as fast as the minis do, and these are cheaper, and I also feel like they clump less. Is this a look that you could do falsies with? Absolutely. It is definitely dramatic enough. Am I going to do falsies with this look? No, I don't want it. For lip liner, I'm going to do the Always Sharp Smashbox liner in the shade Nude Light. This sharpens itself when you open the lid. I normally have to go through the process twice to get it sharp enough. Does that waste product? Definitely. I like peachy, pinky, brown lips, in case you haven't noticed. didn't fill it in completely because I'm going to go in with a lipstick, and the lipstick that I'm using is fairly pigmented, so I don't need to. This is Charlotte Tilbury in the shade Penelope. This one I've had for a while, like 5 years at this point, and it is well loved. I haven't hit the little kiss mark yet. I'm gonna take that. This I think is, definitely nude on me, and has a very creamy, not quite glossy, but like still very fresh, moist type finish, which I think is very nice and healthy. Anyway, this is the finished look. Thank you so much for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed or learned something or got something positive out of the experience of looking at me put on my makeup and talk about this technique. I do really love this look, and I do tend to wear it quite a bit at like fun things that I go to at night especially. So thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe to see more if you would like to. Goodbye.